And anyway, I'll just say it, and you can think what you want. I talk to Tony Hawk, and Tony Hawk talks back. Some of you, probably the same people who thought I spend my time twirling around on ice skates, won't have heard of Tony Hawk. Well, I'll tell you, but I have to say that you should know already. Not knowing Tony Hawk is like not knowing Robbie Williams, or maybe even Tony Blair. It's worse than that if you think about it, because there are loads of politicians and loads of singers, hundreds of TV programmes. George Bush is probably even more famous than Tony Blair, and Britney Spears or Kylie is as famous as Robbie Williams. But there's only one skater, really, and his name's Tony Hawk. Well, there's not only one, but he's definitely the big one. He's the J.K. Rowling of skaters. The Big Mac, the iPod, the Xbox. The only excuse I'll accept for not knowing TH is that you're not interested in skating. When I got into skating, my mum bought me a Tony Hawk poster off the internet. It's the coolest present I've ever had, and it wasn't even the most expensive. And it went straight up onto my bedroom wall, and I just got into the habit of telling it things. At first, I only told Tony about skating. I'd talk about the problems I was having, or the tricks I'd pulled off. I pretty much ran into my room to tell him about the first rock and roll I managed, because I knew it would mean much more to a picture of Tony Hawk than it would to a real-life mum. I'm not dissing my mum, but she hasn't got a clue, really. So when I told her about things like that, she'd try to look all enthusiastic, but there was nothing really going on in her eyes. She was all, "Oh, that's great." But if I'd asked her what a rock and roll was, she wouldn't have been able to tell me. So what was the point? Tony knew, though. Maybe that was why Mum bought me the poster, so that I'd have somebody else to talk to. The talking back started soon after I read his book, Hawk Occupation Skateboarder. I sort of knew what he sounded like then, and some of the things he'd say. To be honest, I sort of knew all of the things he'd say when he talked to me, because they came out of his book. I'd read it 40 or 50 times by then, and I've read it a few more times since. In my opinion, it's the best book ever written, and not just if you're a skater. Everyone should read it, because even if you don't like skating, there's something in there that could teach you something. Tony Hawk has been up and down and gone through things just like any politician or musician or soap star. Anyway, because I'd read it 40 or 50 times, I could remember pretty much all of it off by heart. So, for example, when I told him about the rock and rolls, he said, "They aren't too hard, but they're a foundation for learning balance and control of your board on a ramp." Well done, man. The well done, man part was actual conversation, if you see what I mean. That was new. I made that up. But the rest, those were words he'd used before, more or less. Okay, not more or less. Exactly. I wished in a way that I didn't know the book so well, because then I could have left out the bit where he says, "They aren't too hard." I didn't need to hear that when I'd spent like 6 months trying to get them right. I wish he'd just said, "Hey, they're a foundation for learning balance and control of your board." But leaving out, "They aren't too hard," wouldn't have been honest. When you think of Tony Hawk talking about rock and rolls, you hear him say, "They aren't too hard." I do anyway. That's just how it is. You can't rewrite history, or leave bits of it out just because it suits you. After a while, I started talking to Tony Hawk about other things too. About school, Mum, Alicia, whatever. And I found that he had something to say about those things too. His words still came out of his book, but the book is about his life, not just skating, so not everything he says is about sack taps and shove-its. For example, if I told him about how I'd lost my temper with Mum for no reason, he'd say, "I was ridiculous. I can't believe my parents didn't duct tape me up, stuff a sock in my mouth and throw me in a corner." And when I told him about some big fight at school, he said, "I didn't get into any trouble because I was happy with Cindy." Cindy was his girlfriend at the time. Not everything Tony Hawk said was that helpful, to tell you the truth, but it wasn't his fault. If there was nothing in the book that was exactly right, then I had to make some of the sentences fit as best I could. And the amazing thing was that once you made them fit, then they always made sense if you thought about what he said hard enough. From now on, by the way, Tony Hawk is TH, which is what I call him. Most people call him the Birdman, what with him being a hawk and everything, but that sounds a bit American to me. And also, people around my way are like sheep, and they think that Thierry...